Yeah, so many of them were aging when this happened, so aging in AI started here too. But they kind of thought they knew what they were going to talk about, but they also knew it was new, and they also knew that it was going to go places. And they were right about that, but they weren't right about how fast it was going to go, because it's taken quite a while for people to kind of catch up with these ideas, and for the ideas to catch up to the hype. A whole nother talk is about AI hype, booms and busts. We're in the middle of a boom, and the people who like AI think it's going to last forever. Maybe, we'll see. If you're into computer science or electrical engineering, you'll recognize some of these names. Some of these are very big names in my field where I have my PhD. Okay, so I would like you to talk for approximately 2 minutes. We don't have forever here. Approximately 2 minutes to your one or two of your neighbors about these two questions. Have you heard much about artificial intelligence, that is AI, lately? How, if at all, has AI affected your personal life? Go. It was the fastest growing consumer software application in history. And its owners made a lot of money. Okay, they're still making a lot of money. What was it about ChatGPT that was so interesting? Well, ChatGPT is really only one example of a different kind of software, and by different I mean even within the people who call themselves AI experts, it uses a brute force kind of algorithm and some principles of cognitive science, but very simplified, in order to attempt to do this mimicking that we were talking about. And you can ignore the stuff on the left and pretty much ignore the stuff on the right, but think about those two words, training and adaptation. Because what you do is set up, and the brain in this case is not a human brain or an organic brain. It's a simulation of a brain using simplified models of neurons. And by the way, they're really represented by a whole bunch of big matrices. Linear algebra aficionados take note. This is huge multi-dimensional arrays of numbers. And those numbers are started out in a kind of tabula rasa where they don't signify much of anything. And those numbers are hooked together, all right? And the hooking together is trying to model neuron connections. Again, you don't need to know that. But this tabula rasa is then trained. And this training is a long, arduous process in which you give cases of whatever you're trying to have the intelligence mimic over and over again, and then tell the machine what the right answer is. And if you can automate this process, it's good, because otherwise it's going to take you years. If you have heard artificial intelligence being criticized for taking intellectual property, one of the ways you can train is to use the web and just steal, borrow, use all sorts of stuff that's out on the web without any recompense for the authors, without any even acknowledgement of their intellectual property rights. And they're being sued for it, and if those suits are internationally recognized, the AI community is going to be in big trouble, because that's a very common thing to do, including ChatGPT. These are called large language models, but they don't necessarily have inputs and outputs that are only words. They can also have images and words and images. There are a couple of things to remember as we look through these. This artificial intelligence is good at mimicking certain human characteristics, but it's not doing it on the basis of knowing in the same way or understanding in the same way we are. It's using probabilistic kinds of, in the past, very recent past, with elderly people. And I'm going to pick on one example because it's an example that's gotten a lot of press and is still being used. So, and it's robot pets. Robot dogs started. Japanese companies are very good at these robots, and they had a couple of these, and they weren't necessarily designed for elderly people, but it caught on time very quickly with elderly people. And for one of the big reasons is that you don't have to feed them, and they don't make a mess. And that turned out to be very handy. Okay. Some people also say elderly people were, first of all, bored with what was going on or not going on, and this was a distraction. And some people with dementia thought they were real, which is a little sad, but it turned out to be a nice intro to the robot pet world. The robot dogs were successful with elderly people, and we're talking about thousands of units sold, and sometimes in a batch to nursing homes. Then Paro came along, and this is a pet that is much more expensive, and they're hard to get. For this talk, I went out on the web, and 6,000 pounds in the UK, and 4,500 in the US, and they were both sold out.
Sold out.
Sorry, I was going to bring one along.
Mm.
Don't get me nearly enough, but it was, you know, a friend of mine gave a talk at a college when these were less expensive and newer. And he, for about 10 years, Joe mentioned my talk, and I think we had a forerunner of this. This one's called the Bear, the robot bear. And it picks people up and can take them out of wheelchairs and put them into showers and put them into bed. Again, some of the same arguments that we've talked about previously with the robot can be said here. If you are in a sad state and there aren't any humans around, well, maybe this is better than nothing. On the other hand, would you prefer to be picked up by a robot or a person?
I have this question. Okay. Okay, let me put it this way. It's obviously higher educator can do a lot. Right? In and beyond higher education. Right? But this problem for all the governments, they have a way to control what you can teach and discuss in a university classroom. I'm pretty sure you are working in Korea. During the timeline, university states and governments, they are quite, they're hard time for them, including university professors. So the question is, under such context, assuming the government will try to control what you can do in the university as an educator. So what's your comments? Yeah, and such, an extreme example, you might be arrested when you talk about even neutrally, under certain context. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
That kind of AI would actually, especially if you had lots of electrons, it might do a very decent job of pretending to be you. So